Welcome to Top Bracket Podcast, where top performers share the strategies behind real success.
Welcome back to the Top Bracket Podcast, where we host conversations with high performers who refuse to stay average. I'm your host, mr.FourAM, and on this show, we go beyond titles and polished bios to uncover the real thinking, experiences, and decisions that shape exceptional careers. Today's conversation is about something a lot of people talk about, but far fewer have truly lived at the highest level: leadership under pressure. What does it really take to lead when the stakes are real? The margin for error is so thin, and the standard is non-negotiable. Our guest today has spent decades operating exactly inside those kind of environments, and now helps others translate those lessons into business performance and life. Today's guest is Holland Romero, a combat-proven former Navy SEAL leader with more than 2 decades of experience leading some of the most demanding environments imaginable. Over a 24-year career in the Navy SEAL teams, Holland led elite teams across multiple deployments and high-risk missions around the world, developing a leadership philosophy forged in discipline, clarity, accountability, and execution under pressure. In the years since, he has worked with executives, senior leaders, and elite athletes, helping them strengthen their leadership effectiveness, decision-making abilities, their culture, and their peak performance through his elite mindset mastery and elite leadership process. This conversation is about what leadership looks like when it's tested for real, and what professionals can learn from that standard in their own lives and organizations. When someone develops a lens as sharp as yours, it usually comes from years of pressure, responsibility, and real-world consequences, not just theory you read in a book. When you look back on your path into the Navy SEALs teams and your years of service, what experiences most shaped the way you think about leadership today?
Well, there's a lot to that question, but you know what? Let's start where I first came into the SEAL team. So it's kind of a funny story. So I grew up in Los Angeles, lower socioeconomic area, and military was not on my radar. Growing up, I wanted to be an athlete. And so I concentrated a lot on sports. I always did good academically. I wasn't, straight A's and honors, but I mean, I did good. I was an A-B student. So academics were important to me, but athletics were always a huge part of my life. So I was playing baseball, football, soccer, from the time I was about 4 years old, all the way through high school. And so growing up, I was looking into that, and I also was really interested in the mind. So I thought maybe I would go into psychiatry. That was kind of one of my passions. But again, military wasn't on my radar, and I always thought military was for people who needed that discipline. And to me, I didn't need that. I felt like I had direction. Well, when I was 19 years old, I was a freshman in college. I was working at Chili's, the restaurant, and one night, the bartender at Chili's, he threw a party at his house, and he typically did these, and they were usually upbeat and fun and just a good social gathering. Well, I went to this one. It was very near Christmas, and so you would think it would have that holiday kind of feel to it, but this one was very quiet. And I got there a little bit late, but it was very quiet and just different. And I thought it was very strange. So I started asking around, like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And everyone's kind of talking low, and they're like, "Hey, there's this guy here. He's over there, and he's like, it's something really special." And I was like, "Well, what is it?" And he's like, "Well, he's he's a Navy SEAL." And I'd never heard of Navy SEALs, never heard of the SEAL teams, never even heard of special operations. And I was like, "Well, what is that?" And they're like, "I don't know. It's just top secret. Go ask him." And no, everyone was afraid to go ask this guy. So I was like, "Okay, I'll go ask this guy." So he's sitting there, and he's with I think it was his girlfriend. I'm not sure, but he was with the girl. And I walked up and I said, "No, excuse me. I heard you're a Navy SEAL." And he said, "Yep," very proudly sits up. "Yep." And I was like, "Well, what is that?" He goes, "Well, we jump out of planes, we dive, and we kill people." And at 19, I looked at him like, "You get paid to do that?" And he's like, "Yep." I said, "Well, how do I get that job?" I smirked a little bit, and he's like, "Well, you have to go see your Navy recruiter." Very next day, I go to the Navy recruiter, and it's actually an armed forces recruiter. And I'm walking up. I'm a pretty built guy at 19. Like I said, played sports. Did nothing endurance wise though. It was just all fast twitch muscle, sports type of things. So as I'm walking in, the Marines, Army, all the recruiters are coming out. "Hey, come to Air Force, Army." I'm like, "No, where's the Navy SEAL thing? Where's that?" So I go into the Navy office, walk in there, and the recruiter's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" I'm like, "What's this Navy SEAL thing?" Sits me down. He puts in a video. Never forget it. In the video, there's helicopter flying, 4 guys fast rope down onto top of a building. It's about 7 stories. As they go down floor by floor, they're shooting bad guys, just shoot them. And as they run out the bottom floor, they hit this clacker. Like there was just 4 of them. Hit this clacker, the whole building blows up. And I was like, "Yes. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm in. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do this." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, slow down, slow down." He's like, Do you know anything about this? I was like, no, I just heard that you guys jump out of planes, dive, and kill people. And he starts laughing. The recruiter's like, okay, hold on. There's a lot more to it than that. So he said, let me ask you a couple questions. He's like, have you ever shot a gun before? And I said, no. Have you ever dove before? And I said, no. Have you ever run more than a mile? And I said, no. And so I thought, look, this is not for you. And then he kind of went into explaining what the SEAL teams were and how difficult it was. He said, we get about 200 guys per class. And out of that 200, about 10 to 15% make it. These are guys who have been training for this since they were kids. This is something they're passionate about, that they've wanted to do their whole lives. 90% of them aren't going to make it. He's like, you do not have a chance at this. You should be thinking about something else. He tries to tell me about these other jobs in the Navy. And I'm like, no, the only thing I'm interested in is the SEAL teams. And he's like, okay. So he asked me a couple more questions. And that time I didn't even know there was officer enlisted. That's how naive I was about the military. So he explains to me, what it would look like. And then I need to pick a job in the Navy first. And so, okay, he gives me a sheet and there's all these jobs, Navy jobs, and none of them say Navy SEAL, because back then we didn't have our own rate. So now we do. SEALs are called special operators or SOs. They have their own rate. You can go in as that. If you don't make it, you go do something else, which
Okay.
at 90% of the time that happens. But back then you had to pick a job and then you went to become, you basically tried to become a SEAL. Well, I saw that, and because I was so naive, none of them said Navy SEAL on it. I said, I'm not signing any of this. I said, the only way, and he told me you have to go get a school first. And I'm like, nope. The only way I'm signing this contract is if you guarantee me I'm going from your boot camp straight to SEAL training. And he's like, okay, look, you don't want to do that, because here's what's going to happen. If I let you sign this contract and you go from boot camp straight to BUDS, he's like, BUDS stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. So it's what SEAL training is. It's called BUDS. He's like, if I let you sign this contract and go to boot camp straight to BUDS, he's like, you're going to go to BUDS. You're not going to make it like everyone else. And then you're going to go to the Fleet Navy, and you're going to be the guy who's chipping paint on a ship because you were too dumb to take a job in the Navy. And
Wow. Talk about the lack of belief, the gall.
He just was like, there's no way you're going to make this. There's no way. And so I told him, like, I don't care. Like, I will sign that contract. The only way I'm doing this is I have zero interest in the Navy. I only want to be a Navy SEAL. So I said, okay, here's the deal. Well, I'll let you do this, but he's like, you are not prepared. Here's what needs to happen. And this was probably December, like I said, very close to Christmas. I would guess like the 18th of December. So very close to Christmas. He's like, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on a thing called delayed entry, which is going to give you an extra 3 months. And I'm going to give you a workout program, and you need to do this religiously and do a couple of things to get ready for what you're about to do. And that made sense to me. I was like, okay, it wasn't irrational. It's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That was the plan there. And so signed this contract, and turns out when I signed the contract, I didn't even know what I signed. I knew I was going from boot camp to BUDS, but what I ended up signing was called a dive fair corpsman contract. So what it was is I would go from boot camp to BUDS. If I made it, then I would go to, instead of going to the normal Navy, they have a core school where, you do like medical office work. I wouldn't do that. I would go to a special operations combat medic course, which I didn't know at the time. It turned out to be an amazing, amazing experience. And I left there nationally registered with all kinds of live tissue trauma. And it was an amazing skill to have. But going back, I just knew I was going from boot camp to BUDS. So went home that day after I signed the contract, went home and told my parents what I had done, and they absolutely freaked out. They went crazy. My mom was like, you're staying in school. My dad was like, I'm going to go down there and beat up this recruiter. I mean, they were just furious because he wanted me to stay in sports because I was doing really well. So I called up the recruiter that night and I said, hey, look, my family's freaking out. I can't wait 3 months. I need to leave now. And he's like, he goes, Holland, I got one spot the night of Christmas if you want. You get to do any preparation, but if you want it, you can have it. And I'm like, done. So I left with zero preparation, having no idea what I was getting into. Left the night of Christmas, went from boot camp straight into BUDS, and never looked back. I graduated BUDS as Seaman Apprentice Romero, undesignated E2, nothing. And then I found out after I graduated that I was actually had to go to the combat medic school, which I was furious about at first. I was like, what are you talking about? I want to go to the SEAL teams. And like, no, you have to, this is something you have to do. But again, turned out to be a blessing. It was a 6-month, super intense. It was like medical school. You're there from 6 a.m. till 5 p.m. And that's super, super intense medical school. But you come out with, the best combat medical skills that you can imagine, because if there is trauma out there, we have to be able to protect each other and keep each other alive. So it was that type of amazing school. And then from there, I went to the SEAL team. So there's so many funny stories I could tell you about in between there, because when I came in, I had zero what they call military bearing, where they're, you're supposed to be say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I had none of that. If they asked me a question, I would say yeah. And they of course would lose their minds. So there was a lot of funny stories about just me having no clue what was going on. And then even when I got to the SEAL teams, or I'm sorry, to SEAL training, I was just like, my mind was blown. I was just like, whoa, this is intense. But the good thing, part of it was helpful because I didn't know. A lot of people said that that was probably an advantage, because so many people were scared about the next evolution. They knew what was coming and they were terrified. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to get beat up again today. Let's do this. So everything was new to me. Like in diving, I hadn't shooting, all that. Had no bad habits. So I was just doing what they,
Wow.
so everything worked out really well. In the beginning, it's 6 months. The first 2 months, I was in what they call the goon squad. It's like when you're back half of everything. So after every evolution, when everyone's changing out, you're getting beat for an extra half hour, and they try to make you quit. But because I was young, I think my body caught up pretty quick. So I started off in the back in the first like third. By the middle phase, dive phase, I was in the middle. And then towards third phase, I was working my way towards the front. It was obviously extremely challenging for me physically. The physical demands were the most, the most intense part. The mental part, I wasn't that bad for me. I think I just, from my background and it just, it didn't, that I knew already they weren't going to make me quit. So I just had to make sure that I was making those run times, the ocean swims, obstacle courses, and doing those type of things and staying healthy, which was hard. At Hell Week, of course, that's a whole nother ball game. That's 5 days straight of just intense. That's where you get 80 to 90% of the quitters is during Hell Week, because you're just going nonstop 24, 5 days straight. I mean, the reason why I tell that story, because you asked me about leadership, that's where it starts. When you get into an elite group like that and you're even striving to get there, you're in there and you're knowing that even if I graduate, I will be, if I make it into the SEAL teams, I will go there as the least common denominator, proven absolutely nothing. So it wasn't a passion just to make it through SEAL training. When
Yeah.
I had the mindset is I'm going in to be the best Navy SEAL at the team. I'm not here to be second best. And in every platoon I do, I'm going in to be the best. And I know that it's going to be a lot of work, especially as a new guy, but I'm going in with the humility of knowing that, again, I'm the least common denominator. I'm the lowest of everybody here and I have to prove myself. And what that meant to me is, after, no matter what we did, if we were shooting all day in Mississippi and we were going to be there for 3 weeks, at the end of that day, if I didn't shoot as good as I possibly could, or I wasn't the best that day, then I stayed an extra hour on the range, worked on my shooting. So no matter what it was, and that went across the board of all the different types of training we did. I really took an effort to make sure I was dialed in, and never wanted to be that lowest common denominator. I always wanted to stand out. And that's really where I started taking in and learning what it meant to be elite. I wasn't a leader at that point. I was only taking lessons from the leaders that I got to work with, which, one thing that you and I touched on earlier, leadership in the SEAL teams is obviously very elite. And being able to have that as a base was a huge, huge advantage. So that's where I learned, as a
Okay.
young kid, and going through those ranks. So, and there's, not everybody's an amazing leader. There were some leaders that were okay and some that were not so great. It's just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
A big majority were amazing leaders, and being able to see that and see the impact of that, like you said, that there's zero margin for error. Most people know, though, a lot of special operations, especially in my generation. I happened to become, when did my first platoon was 1999. And I was operational from 99, because it takes time to get through boot camp, through SEAL training, then jump school, and then that medical school. So by the time I got to the team, I believe it was 1998, we did our first deployment, did the workup with my first platoon, and we deployed in 1999. So from 99 to 2020, that era there is the most combat America has seen and special operations has seen ever. The only other time comparable to it was Vietnam, and it didn't have anywhere near that time frame. So we
Wow.
operated through all throughout the Middle East. We had Iraq, Afghanistan, South America, uh, all over Europe. Yeah. So being able to take on and learn from there was just such a blessing, to be able to learn that way, to apply those skills, and then to be able to apply those skills at that level, to where, to be honest with you, leading at the SEAL level, when I became a leader, It was
Mhm.
actually easy because you're working with such an elite group of people. So a platoon is about 18 to 22 guys. And at that level, everyone's driven. They're all proven. They've all, made it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you
Everybody
get weeded
themselves
out.
at that
Yeah.
standard.
I mean, you go to the SEAL team and you don't perform, you're gone. There's guys who make it through SEAL training and then they get there and they're out because you don't perform. There's a very, very high standard.
There's a
So
culture of excellence.
it is. It's a brotherhood. It's a culture, and that's where I learned to lead from was through that area. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer. I'm not sure if I
No, no,
actually
that was
nailed
great.
it your that
Definitely, like,
question, but
made me think. I've met a few special ops guys, and what blows my mind about you every time is not what you do, it's not how you do it. Is that I feel that you have a stigma that you're big, strong, grunt soldiers, but each one of you are so intellectually inclined. It's just crazy to me how smart you guys have to be to do your jobs. And a lot of people admire elite operators from a distance for many reasons, but they rarely understand what those environments do to your standards, your mindset, and your view of responsibility. So let me ask you, how did operating inside the SEAL teams reshape your understanding of discipline, trust, and what it actually means to lead other people well? Because you got to that leadership place
right.
and you make it sound like you had it easy, which I doubt you had it easy
Oh,
because they were accustomed to following through on their word and executing well. What did that environment teach you? I guess what I'm really asking is not so much what it taught you in the SEAL, but what did that environment teach you that most traditional leadership settings never could teach you? Or does that make sense?
it does. It's a great question because when I say it's easy to lead those guys, it's easy when you get to that level after 15 years of it. But getting through those ranks was incredibly difficult, and a lot of pressure. Like I said, that standard is so high. So as a new guy, you're on pins and needles. For
Mhm.
when you're working your way up, and there's such a high expectation that not when you do fail, I mean, it's crushing more on yourself than it is around you. The other guys will try and pick you up. And we do that for each other because nobody's perfect, right? But taking those lessons on and getting to that level, you learn how impactful, not only impactful, but how serious leadership is because what our missions were very, very high risk. And if we were to fail, there's a catastrophic loss, whether it be life, property, money, weapons, just the end result that would happen to either our country or our political allies. So
Wow.
everything was
Or hi.
it's a very, very high. So when I learned that and learned to plan those type of operations and lead those type of operations, when you come and you translate that into the business world, you bring in that same impact. I look at that tasking, whatever that tasking is, whether it's leading a group of people to a certain end state by a certain deadline. I still have that feeling in me that has the utmost importance, and I attack it that way, and I take on every challenge that way. Where in the corporate world, people just don't see it that way. So we bring a certain intensity as special operators that is uncommon. And I get that a lot that, the way we lead, it's not intense in the way of like a boot
Mhm.
camp or anything, like a military, but an intensity of, hey, we cannot fail. And it's not like, hey, I'm here to tell you what to do. It's how can I help you? How can I empower you? Let me know what you need. Because as a leader, I am the first to lift and the last to set down. I never, it's never look at leadership as, hey, I'm the top dog. Even though you're making the calls, I'm here to take care from the lowest person in my team and everyone in between. If we go somewhere to eat, I'm always the last to eat, make sure everyone goes through. So as a leader, I'm there to empower my people. I'm there to take care of them. I'm there to make sure that they have everything they need to succeed. That's what my experience brings. It's not, hey, do this and, here's the standard. It's like, I will set the standard. One thing I've told every group that I've ever led, I tell them, I go in and first I introduce myself, obviously, but I say, I'm going to promise you two things. Number one, I'm going to do everything I can and through this, are working together through our missions and everything to be perfect. Number two, I promise you, I'm going to fail miserably and I'm going to need everyone's help if we're going to be successful from the bottom person to the top. We're going to have to work together, support each other. And that's the only way we're going to accomplish this mission. And it was a way to really break the ice and let them know, hey, my door is always open. I'm not better than you. I'm not perfect. We need to work together and I'm willing
Mhm.
to do anything to empower you to help you succeed. And my door's always open and I'm there to support.
You know what's beautiful about that? That is the difference between leadership and management. And what
100%.
I tell people often is that When you are in a leadership position, leading an organization in the traditional world, the organization is just a group of people all aiming to achieve the same goal, vision, or mission of that organization, business, or corporation. So I remind people often that if you are treated a certain way, it is not because you are special. It is because you hold a position and a rank that commands that type of authority. For example, if you go do a speech and somebody brings you water because you hold a position in an office, and you come to that same event next year, yet you're not in that position anymore, no one brings you water. It wasn't meant for you. It was meant for the position. And
Yeah.
you have to remind yourself that that responsibility as a leader to uplift and equip people is why you're there, not for an ego trip.
No, you're right. It's your experience that's valuable. It's not your title that's valuable. It's your experience. And
Hmm.
especially as leaders, any type of danger, I'm always the first to, I'm leading the people. And what it really brings to mind is, I don't know how familiar you are, but with King David, from the Bible,
Yeah.
a lot of kings, they sit back and they order the people in and they're sitting back eating while there's out fighting. He, as a king, he led the battles. And that's what he was famous for. That's why he was such an amazing king. And he was the first to fight. He was leading them in through combat. He took care of his men, and he led in that way. And he always was like, how can I best support you guys? Of course, he made some errors too, mistakes, but again, none of us are perfect. But that's the way I look at leadership is I've been set at a position to lead men and women into battle. And that's what I did. I never directed them. I always made sure that they had everything they needed, and I led them in and made sure I was fortunate enough that I never lost anybody. But unfortunately, that does happen in special operations. So it's not perfect. One thing that we were always guaranteed is on every single mission, because if we only did high value, we were going after high value targets. We were never just doing like the low or medium level, just to skirmish. We were going after bad guys so we always knew we were going to be outnumbered and outgunned every single time. Minimum 2 to 1, but it could be up to 10 to 1. So we had to make sure that our operations were playing perfectly. Three things we counted on that
Yeah.
is surprise,
Mhm.
and last thing, most importantly, violence of action. And what that meant was we go when they're not expecting it, when the weather's the worst, when no one wants to be outside, it's freezing and raining. That's when we thrive. That's when we'll be out there crawling through the mud and getting that hit. Speed, we're going to use our skill set. We trained to an expert level, and we were very, very good at what we did and have a higher level of skill set, but we used the speed to operate. And last was the violence of action. When we unleash that violence on that target, they're going to think that we are 4 times the size we are because we are not going in there just like ping, ping, where you're unleashing amount of violence that's been pent up for so long. And they've been just itching to get on this target that's what brought us success and taking care of each other. But again, I mean, things can go wrong as well. And you got to adapt in there and you got to plan for that, have contingencies. Um, yeah, that's kind of my background. And one thing I want to touch on, a lot of people think Navy SEALs, they're like knuckle dragging door kickers, and they don't realize what it takes to be a leader. I mean, when you first get there, you are a knuckle dragging door kicker as a new guy. To work your way up the ranks and become a leader, I mean, you are an operations master. You are running logistics, you are running contingencies, you're running insert extract, you're running transportation, you're running finances, you're running ordnance, you're running radios and frequencies, there's so many pieces to this that you are running a network. And so when I work with executives and start explaining to them when they're having issues with their different departments and pillars, and teach them how to do that at that level and create those pillars, create some accountability, they are blown away that, how did you know this? Did you go to business school? I'm like, no, I didn't go to business school. This is all not through my leadership in the SEAL teams. And I said, this is how it relates. And I kind of give them the tactical background of how I learned it. And they were just like, we had no idea that you guys had that much accountability, that had to be accountable and lead at that level and had to take that many things into account. People just don't realize that and how applicable that is to the business world.
Take a break. Conversations like this are so powerful because they let us look beyond admiration into understanding. Because once you really know what shaped the person, you can better understand the principles behind their work. Now that you've spent years translating combat tested principles into coaching and mentorship, I want to move into how that experience became a framework others can actually apply. You just touched on that briefly. So before we go deeper into it, my question is, what is the core philosophy behind your elite mindset mastery and elite leadership process? And what gap were you trying to solve when you built it out?
So number one, if you're going to be an elite mindset mentor and a elite leadership mentor, you have to understand two things. So, elite leadership isn't new. It's been around for millennia. We go back and hear about elite leaders from thousands of years ago. So it's nothing new. But what the big difference is the mentor. Our number one is having those interpersonal skills. Does that mentor inspire you? And do they have the background to help you?
Mm.
Along with that, as a mentor, you have to have that's the right word I'm looking for. You have to have number one, the understanding of what their situation is. You have to provide that safe space for them to trust you and be open with you. And you have to have the empathy. That was the main word I was looking for, to understand that, hey, they're in a certain position, because no one wants to be barked at or yelled at, or, and especially when they already feel bad enough and they're looking to strive. So one thing that I've always brought as a mentor is to be very empathetic and understand. I mean, there's a time where you have to tell them to dig in. Hey, we're digging in, we're going forward, we're doing this. And, I need you to be at your best, but
Yeah.
have to also be empathetic and create that safe space for them to understand, for them to realize that you actually care, that you're taking in what they're saying. But again, the biggest thing is providing that evidence and inspiration to help them and let them know, hey, I'm here with you. We're doing this together. Because I think there's two differences between a coach and a mentor. Do you think a coach is more like someone who has some knowledge, but they haven't exactly done it? So a lot of coaches in sports,
Mhm.
might have played, but they never got to an elite level. That's why they're coaches. Mentors, on the other hand, are those top Hall of Famers that now they mentor the very best players. They're not coaches; they're mentors. You want to get their experience and understand that. So, really, what I want to provide at that elite level is mentorship, but I want to provide it in a way that is compassionate, but also, what is the word? Very passionate, and very passionate, to let them know that failure is not an option. We are going to succeed, and I'm going to make sure that we succeed, because, like I said, with my background, failure is not an option. We have to succeed. So it's really understanding, providing that safe space for them to understand, providing the evidence and inspiration, and then walking them through that together and showing them, first providing that roadmap, and then getting them there. Yeah, I'm not. I think I was starting to answer your question. What was the exact question again? Yeah, as you can tell, I'm very, very passionate about mentorship, and it's something that I've been passionate about even when I was in the SEAL teams, helping the new guys get better. And it's just something that I've always had in me. So, like, sometimes I get over passionate about it.
That's all good, man. And passion is great. That's how we get things done.
Yeah.
So you actually answered a question that I had that I did not ask because I chose to ask a different question. The question that I didn't ask was, what were you seeing in professionals, executives, and athletes that convinced you that they needed more than motivation or conventional coaching? So you did answer that question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't answer you that question because I thought the other question was more important. But the first question was, what was your core philosophy behind your elite mindset mastery and elite leadership process? And what gap were you trying to fill when you built it out?
Got you. So
You did somewhat answer that.
the little bit to touch on that is the philosophy behind it is not accepting failure, making sure failure is not an option.
Okay.
And the gap that you're filling is a lot of elite leaders, even athletes, anyone. When you're reaching for that top rung on the ladder, if you're reaching for it, you're not always going to get it. It's not something that everyone can do. There could be a bunch of people that try out for the SEAL teams. They're passionate about. They're going to give everything in they got. But if you don't make it, there's no shame in that, as long as you give everything you have to get there. So what I try to do to bridge that gap is I want to be that person that helps you get that next rung on the ladder. So these elite executives, where they're reaching for that top rung on the ladder without the right mentorship, they might reach for it, give everything they have, and fail. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if they give it. But what I would like to be is that person that helps them, like, assure that they get there, because I've been there and I have the skill set to get them there. So now they're like more confident. They know that, okay, even if I fall short, Holland's going to bridge that gap for me and help me get there. But again, my target is never just to get the person where their goal is. I always want to prepare them for one step further. So I'm going to get you there, but I also want to prepare you. Who are you? Who are basically, like, who are the board members that you're trying to impress to get there? What is this next step above you? I want to make sure that you go in there, not just get there, but you're the most elite at that level. So there's much more than just, hey, we're going to get you here. I want to get you there at the most elite level, bring a lot of different things to bear and considerations to consider so that when you get there, it's not just a, hey, I got there. Now I got there with a vision and a scope that I didn't even know existed. And now I can go forward knowing that I can see the next level already and perform at that level. I know the expectations and I know how to meet them at that elite level.
So you can go beyond where you thought you could. And that's what great leaders do. They take you beyond your own limitations and show you what's possible.
Yep, exactly. It's really, really inspiring others to achieve what they was previously unattainable, and providing that evidence and inspiration again.
And what's crazy about that word unattainable? People don't realize that is a self limiting belief most of the time. Of course, things
Yeah.
that are impossible are genuinely impossible.
Right.
But a lot of the things that we want to achieve personally and work in our personal lives are things that we can accomplish if we tell ourselves we can. And I have this conversation with my friends all the time because I do a lot of things. They're like, how do you do this? It's simple. I tell myself I can, and I tell myself that any other reality where that's not true just doesn't exist for me. It's that simple.
Yeah.
There's a movie that I watched in high school. It's called The Secret. In The Secret, the premise of it is thoughts are things, and that your mental frequency is just like the earth has a magnetic sphere, we have a magnetic sphere, and we attract the things we think about, whether that's good or bad. The universe doesn't care if something is good or bad. It doesn't give it that designation. It just is. So
Right.
it's like Will Smith said, if you are defeated or if you are a victor, both are right. It just depends on.
Yeah. One other thing I think that really helped me as a mentor
What's that?
is, and it goes to mindset, is because when I came into the SEAL teams, it was a goal, but it wasn't something on my radar. As I went through the SEAL teams, of course, I was very, very passionate about it, but it was never my identity. And for a lot of people in the teams, they grew up wanting to do this and, have military stuff all over the room and the SEAL posters and all that. And once they became SEALs, it became their
Yeah.
identity and that's who they were. Because I was never had that military bearing. I never, even in the SEAL teams, which fortunately for me, it was perfect because there's not a whole lot of, it's more of your reputation as an operator. And the more it is polishing your boots, haircuts, or, uniforms, it's how well of an operator are you and how well respected are you as an operator. But the reason I'm bringing that up is going through the SEAL teams, I have highly decorated, lots of awards, lots of accolades, never kept any of them. I always just gave them to my parents. If
No.
you walked in my house from the time my first platoon till now, there's
Mhm.
not one SEAL picture, not one SEAL award, none of that, because to me, that's something I did, but it's not who I am. Like I am Holland and if I was remembered, if the best thing I'm ever remembered for was being a Navy SEAL, then I would feel like I failed miserably in life because I'm much more passionate about my family, about helping people, about making the world a better place, about, religion, about all those things are who I am. Being a SEAL was something I did and it was great and it was amazing. But again, if you walked in my house, you would have no idea because there's not one SEAL picture, one military thing in this house. It never has been, even when I was in the teams. And it always blew my friends away because they have what they call the man cave, where you go and it's
Yeah.
just all the stuff and you walk in their house and it's, everything. They were just like, "Where's your stuff?" And I was like, "I just gave it away, to people, people that thought it's cool." And it just never was. But I brought that up because in my mentorship, it comes out like I'm much more passionate. It's a skill that I have and I help and I bring that to bear, but it's not who I am. Like I'm a mentor, I'm a leader, and I'm passionate about those things. And so I think that's been a huge help as well.
Okay. A lot of people hold leadership positions on paper, and that's what that last statement reminded me of. But under pressure, they struggle to create real clarity, inspire trust, and bring a real team together around execution, which it sounds like that's where your linchpin really lies.
It
In
is.
your experience, what is the most common ways leaders lose credibility or effectiveness when pressure rises? When is I'm the CEO until I can't perform really happen?
Oh, it's when they start thinking about those accolades, when they're striving for an accolade instead of thinking about the team.
Okay.
One example I can give to you is when I was in the SEAL teams, I got sent to a leadership school. It wasn't for specifically the SEAL teams; it was for the rank that I had at that time. So I
Yeah.
was at class. There was about 25 of us in this leadership course. I was the only SEAL. All kinds of other different military, different ranks, or I'm sorry, same ranks but different jobs.
Mhm.
And a discussion came up And two, the class starts. I had one person, two people actually in the class were like furious that they said they did a great job on the ship and they do this, but they didn't get this award. And then they got a big discussion in the class. They're like, yeah, I did this and I didn't get recognized for that. But I was quiet. And the teacher noticed, or the instructor,
Yeah.
like saw this, everyone going crazy. And she looked over me. She's like, Holland, you haven't said a word. Like, what are your thoughts? I
Yeah.
said, I could care less about any award. I said, you can't give me any award that I can pin on my chest that's going to make me shoot better, plan better, run faster, jump better out of a plane. There's nothing that you could give me that's going to
These are
help.
skills that keep me alive.
Yeah, that to help me be a better SEAL. So I honestly don't care if I never get another award. But the other thing is, what people forget is when a lot of people think of leadership as a personal endeavor, and in a way it is to become. But whenever you're focused on yourself, what are you not doing? You're not leading others. So if you're focused on yourself and you want to be a good leader, you're in the wrong place. You should be thinking about the team, the organization, the mission. So I think a lot of people get lost there as leaders. They're like, okay, how do I become a better leader? How do I get that next level? How do I get this accolade? You're doing it wrong. Think about how can I better lead the people? How can I better prepare them? How can I provide for them better, give them the assets they need? How do I accomplish this mission? How many pillars do I need? How do I get them to work together so that we can slowly get to where we need to be? So I think that's the biggest factor where leaders go wrong is they start focusing on themselves. And again, if you're working on yourself, you're not leading anybody.
Wow. I have a saying, ego is expensive. I think this really puts the price on how expensive it truly is.
And yeah, and can you imagine at a level where that failure is, like I said, it's catastrophic, and there's no room for that.
Yeah. Wow. So, one of the most valuable things an experienced leader can do is name what others overlook, which I think that if they don't have experience in what I call giving someone a shit sandwich, compliment, critique, compliment, just soften the blow a little bit, especially in environments where performance depends on alignment, not just talent. When you work with organizations or high performers today, what blind spots do you see most often around culture, accountability, and their general team performance? You talk about these pillars and you would deep dive into their specific situation. So it sounds like these are the things you're somewhat looking for, the switches that you need to turn on or off to
Yeah.
optimize performance.
So to give you an overall answer first, then dial it in. Most leaders look at things as they're organizing, right? They're building, they're trying to organize things instead of building operations. So they have these pillars, and as leaders, they're trying to make sure these pillars are set instead of giving that accountability. I look at it as a leader, you want to build a network and you want to run it as a network, meaning you need to identify where those pillars are, identify pillar leads for each of those, give them their accountability, let them know what their responsibilities are, make sure that that's clear. It has to be absolutely clear. This is the expectation. This is the deadline of those expectations. And here's your left and right flanks. Here's the authority that you have to do that. And here's where I want you to check back with me. Once I do that, now I don't have to be in the weeds checking on them. I know that if they're not coming to me, they're meeting that expectation. So that we have that weekly check-in, there's no
Mhm.
surprises. If I give them that accountability and they come to me, they know, they also have to know you're not coming to me for answers. You're coming to me with at least a recommendation. If you have a problem, you need to give me a recommendation of your plan to solve it. If it's a little bit
Mhm.
wrong, I can help you, but I'm
Yeah.
not here to solve your problems. I'm here to empower you to make you guys better leaders as well. Because even when I'm in a leadership position, I'm always mentoring those below me, but I'm empowering them, giving them that recognition. But I'm also positioning it as, hey, I'm trusting in you. I'm giving you this because I believe that you have the leadership capability to do that and walk them through those leadership steps. But I think that the biggest factor is leaders don't understand that and they're trying to run everything and they don't build those networks. They don't build the operation system. They look at it as like, okay, I'm going to organize this team and I got to organize this and instead of empower and build an operation. So I would say the biggest thing is they're not creating the right system. They're not giving the right empowerment and they're not having the accountability to where they're checking in and providing that check-in and make sure that things are on time and that there's no surprises. But that's the
Wow.
gap I see the most.
Okay. So, what do people tend to mistake for strong leadership that actually weakens execution over time?
I would say what you touched on, managing versus leadership. Some people think that as leaders, they have the power to, manage and micromanage. And when they get those accolades, they're like, yeah, me, I did such an awesome job as a leader, and I think that erodes their leadership because then the team takes that as resentment. They're not getting recognized, and then they look at that leader as a manager. One thing I always did is of course, in leadership, I got lots of accolades for running the teams I did, but I always, when I got those accolades publicly, luckily, I spread those accolades to those team members who did special things. The only reason why we got it, so I'm happy to receive this for the team. But the reason why we got this and I highlight this person did this for me at this time and really took us to this level. And then this group over here, they did this, which helped us to get to there and then spread those accolades down. And man, that got so much buy-in when we had those type of events, which we had for like weekly at front of the whole SEAL team. We would have usually on Fridays we would get together and talk about things that had happened over the week and things happen for the next week. So once a month, you're getting recognized. Hey, you guys did an amazing job on this exercise. Holland, that was awesome. And then I was like, hey, I just want to point out, I'm accepting this on behalf of my platoon or my cross-functional team. But the reason why we got this is because Jose here, he was up all night making sure that our house was secure, setting up cameras. And Wendy, she went through and provided the intelligence, made sure that I had UAVs overhead and let me know I was going into danger and had me turn around my routes. And when you put out that type and you're doing that for 5 or 6 different groups, man, they walk back into the team after that. And now their department's coming up to them. Man, you guys did awesome. And then we get back together and now my cross-functional team, we get together. We're like a family now. They're just like, man, I'm recognized. And they would do anything for me. And that's a huge mistake that some SEALs made running these cross-functional teams because the cross-functional team, it's made up of about 60 to 70 people. They're different than SEAL platoons, but only 4 of us, only 4 SEALs. We're in charge of the operations, but we have 5 to 6 different pillars to make that work. I touched on some of them. I won't go into too much detail because it's a little bit sensitive, but we have those pillars that we cannot be successful without them. A big mistake that some of the SEALs made was it's us against them, or not against, but it's us and them. We're like the SEALs, we're special. You guys do what we tell you. And I did the opposite. I brought them in and let them know, like I said, I'm going to do everything I can for you guys to empower you guys. I can't do this on my own. I need your help. And I created that buy-in. But then we did that over a year and a half together before we went overseas. And so by the time we were ready to go overseas, I had a family. They would do anything for me, but they knew I would do anything for them as well. And I could give a couple of examples of things that I'll give you a quick one. Really, really important. We were on an exercise right before we were going on deployment. So we've been together for about a year at this point, and we were doing our final exercise. It's like 30 days, very intense. We had police coming after us, just a lot of things in this exercise. It's a legit exercise, like very intense for 30 days straight. And I had a guy in my team. He was one of the, we call them enablers, wasn't a SEAL, but he was always just did an amazing job. He was always super happy too, but he was in the exercise. He was a little bit like sad. It was very unusual for him. So I pulled him aside and I'm like, hey, bro, what's going on? He was like, kind of started tearing up. He's like, my daughter's having her recital. In like 2 days. And I asked my leadership if I could be excused from the exercise to go. It would only be a day. Like I wouldn't even gone a day. I would leave, at like 5 in the evening or like 3 in the afternoon. I'd be back that night. I promised them. We were actually in Ventura which is in California. He lived in San Diego. So we're like 3 hours away. They denied it. And I was like, bro, you're going. And he's like, what? And I'm like, so I wrote up a basically like an exercise, like part of our exercise that I needed him to go do this thing. And he was just like, he could not believe it. And then, of course, other people found out about it.
Yeah.
But he was just so excited. He was like, you're going to do that. And I'm like, yeah, don't get in trouble. Don't drink. Don't do anything dumb. But
don't make you regret this.
Yeah, exactly. But when he came back, he was a man on fire for the second half of that exercise was just running things. He was so happy. And to be able to do that for the people on my team, and because I did other things, that one really stands out, but I did other things for the different girls and guys and just making sure that they were taken care of. And I had 100% buy-in that they would literally do anything. Where I was working in the middle of the night, they would come up, hey, Holland, what can I do for you to help you out? What do you need for tomorrow that I could start working on? Both guys and girls of the different pillars, because I took such good care of them. And like I said, we deployed, we had a family, and we did incredibly well because of the family dynamic that we created. I would say to answer your question, that's a lot of things that leaders overlook. They look at themselves instead of the team.
Wow. So That's where leadership gets interesting, man, because at a certain level, at that level, it stops being about techniques and starts becoming about standards, the identity of the team, and who people really are under pressure. That's the difference between performing well once and sustaining excellence over time. That's family dynamic, I'm sure, help with that,
Yeah.
especially across seasons of pressure, uncertainty, and responsibility, because you don't know what's coming at you. It's a very dynamic environment. What personal standards, or I guess inner disciplines, have mattered most in helping you sustain elite performance across different chapters in your life? You've been a I'm gonna say different person,
Yeah.
but you've gone through different transformations
For
over the last
sure.
25, 30 years.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that really stands out is never accepting a limit. And what I mean by that is, of course,
Mm,
you come into
I love
this
that.
at this level, right? And then when you get
Mhm.
to that level, you're not okay. I'm done. I made it. I'm a SEAL. No, now
No.
I'm striving. Now I've got to this level. Okay, I'm at that level, but now, so it's always, no matter how high you get, you're always thinking about the next level. And again, it's not personally, but how
Mhm.
can I become a better leader for the team to accomplish our mission, for my team to take care of them, and never accepting like, okay, I've got there. That's something that really helped me is as I became a leader, I was never like, okay, I made it. I'm here. This is my plateau. Like I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm hands up and just chill. It's always, I want to be better. I
there
want to
is
be
no
better.
plateau.
I'm sorry.
There is no plateau.
No, there is no plateau, and that's physically as well. So as a, I'm very into physical fitness. 51 years old, and I'm in pretty good shape, but I've never accepted like, okay, I've got to this level. I can just chill now. Like I've always striving and striving, strive. Of course, as you get older, it's not as easy. But I still stay very intense with my workouts, with my cardio. And to go back to leadership, it's just never accepting like, hey, I've made it. I am the top leader. I will never stop trying to be a better leader. I'll always use my skill set to try and improve every day. And of course, when I mentor, I'm going to give everything I have at that level, but I'm never done. I'm not saying like, oh, I've made it. I'm the best leader ever. I will keep going and never accept that plateau. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would encourage leaders is, always be striving for that next level. Never give up. Know that you have that passion into you, know you have that potential.
So what do you do when you can't see the next level, or you don't know how to identify what the next peak is that you should be striving towards? How do you develop that vision to know what you're actually aiming for?
I would say that comes more into mindset, that having that mindset of knowing that I will never be satisfied where I'm at. I might not see where that is yet, but I have my eye out and I know I have a passion for what's next, because you're right. Sometimes you don't know what's next and you have to be the best that you are at that level, but never saying, oh, I'm done. Just being aware that it may take a little bit of time, but it will always open up. That aperture, especially as a leader, gets wider and wider as you get there. And it happens slowly. It doesn't happen all at once,
Yeah,
but
yeah, for
as it
sure.
opens up, know that, okay, bam, now I see it. I got it. Now I'm locked in. That's my next target. So just being always keeping at that expectation and your mindset open to that, and never saying, oh, okay, I'm going to chill out for a while. I know that's the wrong thing to say, because it's okay to take a break for a little bit, and you have to sometimes, that both
Yeah,
mentally and physically,
but I know
you
what
have
you
to
mean.
have time to rest and recuperate. So that was the wrong thing to say, but never take it as like, I'm done, or, just, I've reached the top. Let's just always be ready to move, and know that once you are rested, now you're rejuvenated, and now you even have more fire to move forward.
You know, there was a reason why I asked that question. Personally, in my life, after completing my second or third acquisition, it had been the largest transaction I'd done to that time, and I didn't know what to do from that point on. I was like, okay, I've achieved this major milestone in my life. I don't have to work anymore. What is my motivation? Where's my discipline really grounded? Why am I getting up and continuing to do this? I don't need more money. Am I
Yeah.
doing this for money? Just went into a very reflective state,
Yeah.
and it took me a while to come out of that space.
Yeah. And I think that's when you get to that state is where you have to start thinking, okay, I've accomplished this. I have the money I need. Who can I help next? And that will open up your aperture. But also, life is never done giving us adversity, right? Life is always a
Oh, going
challenge.
that far away.
And the one thing that I've learned, and one thing I'm very passionate about, is turning adversity into opportunity, because it's always available. When we take on adversity, most people shy away from adversity.
Mhm.
SEAL teams, we never do that. We attack adversity. And then what I've realized is by doing that, you can turn adversity into opportunity. Always. There's always that opportunity. If you don't give up, it's not going to be easy, but when you fight through that, there's always an opportunity at the other side of that. And that's a new journey there to get there. It's not going to be a one-step journey, but it gives you that passion again to, hey, I got through this adversity. Now I can help others that when they get there, I can help them. Hey, this is how I did it. But now my next target's, I can see it and I'm heading for it.
Wow. That's also beautiful, man. I hope you write a book one day.
Yeah, a lot of people told me I need to write a book, but
I mean, just the way your perspective of life is rare. It's
yeah,
not. It's like, okay, I'm going to crush this, but I'm not going to care whether or not I get awarded for it. Who thinks like that? Like a lot of people want high performance, but not everybody's willing to become the kind of person that high performance demands. You wanted to become that person, but you cared not about the accolades or credentials that came with it, which
yeah.
is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy. It's just rare. So how do you think about confidence, emotional control, and mental resilience when everything around you feels uncertain or high stakes, when you're not worried about what you're going to get on the other side of it?
Yeah, you know what? When I think about how I implement that is it's always looking at that end state. What is the end state? What is the mission? And
Mhm.
when I look at that, all these other things disappear. All the danger disappears, the accolades disappear. It's working a problem in your head that, again, you can't do it on your own. How
Yeah.
do I put these pieces together? So it's there's so much to consider that you forget about the risk. You forget about the things that could go wrong. You start focusing on how do I get there? What are the second and third order effects of every decision I make moving forward to make sure that I'm making informed decisions, not just I'm not guessing or hoping that this works out. I'm going to consider every second and third order effect going forward so that when I make that decision, I already know what the possibilities are. And if it doesn't line up, through those second order effects, then I'm going to consider something else until I get there and I know what I'm going to do moving forward. And then I'm thinking about the team. Now that I have a good way forward, how do I empower them to make sure? How do I make sure that they have everything they need? How do I empower them? How do I set up those checkpoints so that they know they can come to me? And then how do I keep putting these pieces together to accomplish that mission? And I think that's the best way to address that is, the confidence comes from knowing that I'm going to accomplish that mission. And I'm always focused on that. It makes me forget about the accolades, not even a consideration. It's how do I get there? The risk, not a consideration. I've been tasked. Let's get there. I'm taking into account all the risk and I'm doing the best I can to mitigate them. But I'm making all the decisions. I'm making informed decisions. I'm not just making decisions. And I'm considering I'm have contingencies and tertiary plans for everything that I do. It's not just a single plan. So if things go wrong at any certain point, at any step along the way, it's not just a one-step deal. That I have not only just a new direction to go, but one that I've thought about carefully, and I know the second and third order effects of, and I can make confident decisions moving forward, very tactical decisions.
Wow. I have a question for you. Are you familiar with the author and speaker Simon Sinek?
I am, yes.
Have you read The Infinite Game?
No, I have not. I've seen a lot of his speeches, and he actually works with the SEAL teams. I'm not sure if you're aware with that.
Yeah.
Aware of that, but yeah, he has a great mindset and the way he explains things, and helps people understand. He's been very very valuable to the SEAL teams and our mindset. I didn't get to work with him specifically. He became more popular after I got out.
Okay.
'Cause I got out in 2020 January, basically
Mhm.
December 31st of 2019 was my last day. So I didn't get to work with him, and he kind of really kicked off probably like a year after that. But
Yeah.
I hear about him a lot, and I think he's an incredible speaker, has an incredible mindset, and very valuable asset to anyone who reads.
I don't know. Reading is very time consuming. So I have an Audible account now. I suggest there's a book he wrote. I think it might have been his last book. It's called The Infinite Game. And he took the principles that he learned from working with military teams and applied it to business, similar to the way you have transitioned your skill set. But in The Infinite Game, he basically states business is an infinite game where the loser only loses where they choose to give up or they go bankrupt. Other than that, a business has all the rights as a natural person, except they can live forever and be immortal and super wealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. But when I hear that, obviously if you give up, you don't have the right mindset. But even if you went bankrupt, that's adversity.
Yeah.
You don't have to be done there. You could take that as an opportunity. Hey, I went bankrupt. I got to pick up pull up my bootstraps and get back in it. How do I correct this? And then
Yeah.
someone else it comes to that point, you could be that mentor to them. Like, hey, I'm getting close to bankruptcy. What do I do? Hey, here's what I did. Here's what I learned, because I
Yeah.
learned, I fell down, but I got back up. I didn't let that defeat me. I learned from it. I got back up, and now I'm battling forward again. And that's what I would say to that is you're only out if you give up, because you're going to hit adversity, but you can turn that into a learning point, an opportunity to go forward and be, even better.
It's all about mindset. So let me ask a more direct question for the listeners of the show.
Sure.
When someone is struggling internally, whether with fear or self doubt or just under pressure, let's say the bankruptcy example,
Yeah.
where do you typically start helping them rebuild from?
So that's going to be different for every person. So one thing that I haven't pointed out yet, but I think is super important
Yeah.
is mentorship, especially elite mentorship, is never cookie cutter. It has to be dialed into every specific person, because every leader is different, right? I mean, there's a spectrum of leaders. You have a leader like a Steve Jobs, who's, very, very smart, but kind of on his own program. You have other like military
Mhm.
leaders and everyone in between. People are outspoken, some are introverts, but they're all leaders at a certain level. You have to read that spectrum. Everyone has different strengths. You want to capitalize on those strengths. Everyone has different weaknesses. You want to identify those and help them overcome those. So it's really different for every client that I've worked with, is understanding, what are those pressures? What are the fears behind those pressures? What are the risks? What are you afraid of losing? What can you gain? And really understanding that. And only then can I come up with a plan that's actually going to suit them. So I'd really have to understand and again, give them that safe place and let them know this is a safe space for you to let me know. And I'm empathetic to there, but I'm going to be passionate about helping you get there, and you're not going to do it alone. I'll make sure I'll help you through that. Again, it's just really understanding and customizing it to each individual client.
Wow. That is a lot of effort and pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's one thing that I've found that it's really helped me as a mentor is no two people I've mentored ever have the same mentorship process. I customize every process for each individual client. I think it would be disingenuous for my clients to have the same exact process, because they're very, very, very different. So any client I work with, I get to understand their situation first, and only then can I customize and build a plan for them, and then I present it to them, and make sure that it's aligned with them, and then we go from there.
Cool. So, what I find fascinating is that when someone has built real mastery in leadership and performance, the natural next question, for me at least, becomes whether that excellence can also be translated into ownership. On the show, we love exploring how a person's personal skills can extend beyond career success into ownership, enterprise, and maybe even legacy.
Yeah.
Have you ever bought a business or considered buying one or thought seriously about ownership as another arena for leadership and impact?
Yeah, I've never thought about buying another business, only because, like I said, I'm very into customizing my own, and I've never
Mhm.
met anyone who fully aligned with, what I believe. Like you said, my viewpoints and the way I look at things is a little bit different. So
Mhm.
I've collaborated a lot with other leadership that are very, very in tune with mine and same values, and work very, very well with them. But I've never considered buying another one. I do have mine, Legacy Forged Mindset, which
Yeah.
I built specifically by customizing it and making it different. Like you said, it's not about hype. It's not about course curriculum. It's about transformation. Really, it's really helping clients understand that this is not just a course. It's a transformational leadership process that's customized to each individual client. But yeah, no, I don't think I'd be interested in buying anything else. Just taking mine to the next level and helping other companies that have the same values. Super happy to collaborate and really use that opportunity to help them, but also take my leadership to the next level as well.
It's interesting you said that. In my private practice, where I perform the acquisition process, they're surprised there's no like modules or course.
Yeah.
And I let them know, like, no, this is all live. You talk to me, you don't talk to a screen that I recorded a bunch of videos and sell to a bunch of people. That's not my MO. And they're that in my space, that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So they're taken aback by the quality and the standard that I have because no, there is no cookie cutter, especially in acquisitions. Every deal is different. There's no deal that's alike. Well, there's a deal that's alike, but there's no deal that's exactly the same where I can give you a framework and say, it's going to go exactly like this step by step. It's just not probable. And that brings me to the heart of this conversation because whether it's teams, companies, or personal growth, the deeper question was always what kind of life and legacy your standards are building. And for you, it sounds like your private consulting practice is about to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want my legacy to be is, I want to be remembered as that guy who provided that safe space and provided the evidence and inspiration for others to attain what they thought was previously unattainable. I really want to be able to provide that for people who might be a little bit hesitant about reaching out for mentorship. They might be a little nervous about it, working with someone to know, well, I want them to know that if they were to work with me, and of course, I only want to work with them if they're inspired by my background. I don't want a client just because I was a Navy SEAL. I want to meet them first and I want them to understand who I am.
You probably get that a lot of.
And if our values are in alignment, and if I provide that evidence and inspiration to them, then I'm
Mhm.
more than happy to work with them. But I want them to know that their journey is not alone. I will take the time to understand it, and I will help them get there. I'm not going to give them just a curriculum and say, all right, go after it, get it. No, I'm there 100% of the way. And what I tell all my clients, of course, I build a curriculum that's specific for each client and we go through it together. But I
Yeah.
tell, it's one thing for me to deliver that and deliver, motivation and deliver a curriculum, but the mentorship doesn't come alive until you really interact, till I get your feedback and I understand how your understanding of these things and what your concerns are. What are your challenges right now around this subject? And that's where the mentorship always explodes because I let them know that in the beginning. And clients are a little bit, quiet in the beginning, and they're just so you kind of feel it out. But once we get engaged like that, and I let them know, like, this is what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, yeah. Now they're like talking, now they're always giving feedback because like, oh, and that was so valuable. And it really builds the momentum of, now that I have a better understanding of where you're at in your specific situation, here's exactly how we were going to handle this. And they're just like, yes, yes. Okay. Now I see, I got it. So that's what I want my legacy to be is to know that I was the person that stepped up to make sure that they achieve that success, that I gave 110% to mentor others and help them succeed.
Wow. So, dude, unfortunately, I got to wrap this up. I really don't want to. I have so many more. So, top bracket is ultimately about people who refuse to stay average, but that means different things to different stages of life. At this point in your journey, what does refusing to stay average mean to you now? And what kind of legacy are you committed to building from here? You just answered that question. So, I'm going to just wrap that up.
Okay. Yeah. To me, not staying average, it means that I'm always striving to help more people. I'm always striving to help at the next level. I want to help. I want to go from where I am. I'm not happy. I'm happy,
Mhm.
but I'm not satisfied. That's a better word. I'm happy with the work that I'm doing, but I'm not satisfied. There's so much more I could be doing. There's so many more people I could be working with. And that's why I love having opportunities like this. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak to you. My hopes is that other people will see this and again, if there's that inspiration and if they feel like that I represent the values and I can help them with operations, with building elite teams, that's my passion. That's what I want to strive for. And I'll always take that to the next level, whether it be with one-on-one clients, with teams, with corporations, with businesses, always looking to grow that. The
Sorry.
more people I can impact at that level and provide that evidence and inspiration to, uh, you know, the happier I'm going to be, the more of a legacy I'll be able to leave. And that's what I'm striving for. I want people to say that, Holland, we understand he was a Navy SEAL, but that wasn't my legacy. That's something I did. My passion is providing that evidence and inspiration for others to achieve what was previously unattainable.
So just so the audience members that may be interested in working with you know two things. A, do you primarily work in person or remote?
Both, actually. So right now it's kind of half and half.
Okay.
So I come out, I work with a doctor here in San Diego, but I also have remote clients in different parts of the US. I just spoke with a client today who wants me to do both. I'm going to do some virtual training with them, but they also invited me to Chicago to do in-person events and then also out of the country to do some events with them outside the country. So that was pretty exciting. That'll be my first opportunity to do this outside the country since I started this company. And I just launched in January. So it's actually a fairly new company, but it's actually exploded since I launched it in January. I've gotten multiple clients and everything's been by referral. And like I just brought on, I haven't signed them yet, but they were like 100%. We want to work with you virtually in person and take you out of the country to talk to our headquarters. So it's been going incredibly well. But again, I'm so grateful for opportunities like this to be able to speak with someone at your level and be able to share my perspective and touch a wider audience. I'm incredibly grateful.
I'd love to have you, man. Thank you for coming. How can people contact you? You have a website? You want me to hit you up on LinkedIn, Instagram? It's the best way
Yeah,
to get in touch.
I would say the two easiest ways are through my website and LinkedIn. So my
Okay.
website is the company's called Legacy Forged. I'm sorry, Legacy Forged Mindset. The website is lfmindset.com. I can be reached through Holland at lfmindset.com. And then it could always, the super easy way to find me is on LinkedIn. I've checked, there's not another Holland Romero on the planet. So when I name into LinkedIn, you're only going to find me, but that has a lot of information on me. I would say that's the number one way because you're going to see my background there. It talks about what I'm about, but you'll also see all the things I've done in my career, has my military background, it just goes into a great detail where the website is more focused on the business. The LinkedIn profile is going to give you a lot more about personal information about me, about who I am, and give you a better picture on that. So I would recommend check the link out. Check the LinkedIn first, get
Mhm.
that background and get a little bit of understanding, and then check out the website. And then you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, message me, or through the website, email me at Holland at lfmindset.com and be happy to get in touch and collaborate.
That's beautiful, man. Holland, this was a powerful conversation. I think what stood out most was that true leadership is not just about intensity and authority, which is a stigma leadership has.
Right.
It's about clarity, discipline, trust, and the ability to help others rise under pressure and
100%.
selflessness based
Yep.
on everything we talked about today. That's something I'm taking away from the conversation. Your story
100%.
of depth and credibility to the conversation that very few people can offer, you know?
I appreciate it.
And I know our audience is going to walk away with a stronger understanding of what elite leadership actually looks like when it's lived, not just talked about. Like you
I
said earlier, mentorship is taught from lived experiences. Whenever I do my presentations, I tell people I am a mentor, not a coach, because I teach from my lived experiences, the deals I've done, and the deals that I didn't do, and the deals that were lost.
Right.
A
Yeah.
coach can't do that.
I'm glad you said that because people forget there's so many lessons that can be learned from failure, and that's something we didn't touch on. But I mean, that nobody's perfect. I failed at things and I've taken those lessons and turned that adversity into opportunity and really taken that aboard and share those lessons as well. And that also creates a little bit of vulnerability, which clients love, to show that vulnerability and let them know that, hey man, I had to fight my way there too. Wasn't born perfect. I wasn't born at this level. I had to fight, and I've been through the same challenges you have, and that's why I can help you. So I'm glad
You
you
know what?
something I
We
want.
got we got 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Let the people know how important it is to learn from failure because you're absolutely right. And that's something that's not taught or told very often.
yeah. So well, like I said, life is full of adversity. Life is such a challenge, and none of us are perfect. And to know that if you strive for that highest rung on the ladder,
Mhm.
to not get there is not. There's no shame in that because you're striving for something it, that's at the very highest level. But when you fail, there's so many lessons to learn from there. Why didn't I get there? How can I get there next time? What do I need to do to better prepare? Like I said, pick up your bootstraps, get back up, and get there. And that's what I've always done. Just realizing there's so much potential there, and then not just your failure, that other people fail around you. Be there to
Mhm.
help them. Have that ability. Hey, help pick them up. Get to understand what were they striving for, where did they fail, help them. And there's so many lessons learned in that. Not as only is that empathetic and helpful to that person, but now it gets you thinking about, okay, if this were to happen to me, here's how I would solve that and be there. But yeah, there's so much to learn from failure, and to take those lessons in. And again, the biggest thing I always say, turn adversity into opportunity because it's always there. And when you capitalize on opportunity, that's when things really open up.
You know, a framework that I use in my mentorship when I'm advising my private clients is set the objective. What do you want to achieve? Set the standard so you can identify whether or not it was actually achieved. You're not BSing yourself. Choose the methodology. And I think that's where failure really comes in because after the methodology is applied, you automatically get the result. Either you win or you don't.
Right.
But I think that people get so obsessed with achieving the objective and meeting a standard that they forget that if you shoot for the moon, landing among the stars is not a bad effect.
There's so many people who are going to look back with regret. And I should have tried that. I should have went for it. I never
Mhm.
want to be that person. I would rather shoot, like you said, shoot for the moon and hit the stars than not have tried it all, but then figure it out. Like, okay, I'm here. Now I'm a little bit closer than I was before. Let's figure out how to get there and get there. But I think I'm glad you said that because that's so valuable. To set the fear aside. Just go for it. Don't have regret. Don't look back and say, I wish I would have. Just do it. Give everything you have. So yeah,
He told me what he loves about American entrepreneurship is that it's okay for us to fail because we're seen as more valuable to the marketplace and our clients after we choose to get back up and keep fighting. Whereas in his country, when you fail as an entrepreneur, you're viewed as a failure. Nobody wants to touch you. You kind of have like a toxic stigma. You don't get the opportunity to get back up and try again. I want people listening to understand that just because you fail at a business or an endeavor doesn't mean you should give up. Built 9 companies and 4 of them failed, but I didn't quit. That's why I was able to achieve what I was able to achieve. And I'm sure Holland has a similar story. Failure is just part of the process. You have to fight through it. Holland, thank you for joining me on the Top Bracket Podcast, and everyone listening.
Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Top Bracket Podcast, where top performers share their playbook. Subscribe so you never miss the next episode.